person with the state law.
All right, Richard, thank you so much for joining us.
Have a nice day.
Let's see what today's A-list. Let's see what our A-list has to say about all of this. Dr. James Peterson is an English professor at Bucknell University and a pop culture analyst. Cooper Lawrence is a psychology specialist and a radio talk show host. Wendy Murphy, a former prosecutor. And today's Fox Wildcard, we've got Fox legal analyst Mercedes Colwin. Thank you so much for joining us. Let me start with you, Cooper, in terms of the impact of a lawsuit like this. Do you think there's enough here to go forward?
You know, it's so funny. He said, you know, the lawsuit is 20 million. I mean, 49 pages long. You know, it's just the timing is incredible. I don't care what he says. This is ridiculous. I never heard of this woman until today. You know, I don't think her reputation is damaged, and I think this is from years in radio. I'll tell you, these were three guys sitting in a room trying to be funny. And when this first happened, all of us radio folks said, "Oh, there, but for the grace of God," because it could have been any one of us. And now it's made us very reticent to say anything at all controversial. Now what we do is we play clips of American Idol and go, "Isn't that funny?" Because we're afraid to offer any opinion on anything. And this was a little really far, and he apologized. It did the mea culpa all over. He got fired. You know, what more do you want from this man?
Let me ask Dr. Peterson right now, do you believe that her reputation has been severely damaged by what Imus said, even though the country was overwhelmingly in support of this basketball team?
Well, first of all, I think they want as much of that $20 million as they possibly can get in terms of the lawsuit. But secondly, what I would say is some of this, for me, hinges on whether or not she's returning. I think she's a junior, and I feel like if you're returning to that program and you have to play in the public eye, I think then you might have a case here. I don't think you're going to win, but you certainly have a case, because understand this, he did slander the Rutgers University women's basketball brand. I think this case really should be more like a class action suit as opposed to any particular individual trying to do it. But the bottom line is she does have a case.
You know, this gives lawyers a bad name, and I get the heebie-jeebies about these kinds of lawsuits. And it doesn't mean that I think what he did was appropriate. I was disgusted. I don't want to listen to the guy. But when you sue on the theory that people think she's an unchaste woman, when everybody knows he was saying it as a joke or some sort of satire, I think it really is an embarrassment to lawyers.
Here's the thing,
I would agree with that.
And this is the strongest defense here, is that it's opinion. He doesn't know the basketball team. He didn't know any of these women. He didn't interact with these women. So anything that he espouses about their reputation is based on opinion. Opinion is a defense to defamation cases.
And it's not really an opinion issue per se, because he doesn't know them. He doesn't know whether they are promiscuous or not. Look, if you can sue somebody for saying nappy-headed hoe because it's a comment on their unchaste status, let's see, who should the victim in the Kobe Bryant case sue when the defense attorneys said she had sex with 3 men in 3 days, which was false? Where were the lawsuits there? I mean, I just think this is ridiculous.
The unchaste part is a little bit misdirected, but some of what we have to focus on here is the power that Don Imus has to sway his audience and sway public opinion. And obviously the lawyers are going to go straight after this. I don't think the unchaste piece is as sound as the simple fact that he slandered them in some kind of negative way.
Well, certainly it's one we're going to watch, and I'm sure that if she's successful, others may follow. All right, stand by for just a moment. A major toy recall means lawsuits, more lawsuits, of course, and some parents say the toy companies either knew or should have known about dangerous lead paint. Plus, important new information about another, get this, possible danger that could easily end up in your baby's mouth. And we are expecting a news conference on those 6 coal mines. Caroline, thank you. Well, there is reaction to the toy recalls. The lawsuits, as you can imagine, are flying. Individuals and class action suits have been filed. In one case, the defendants, quote, knew or should have known that the toys were defective, and they want Mattel to pay for extended health screening for children who may have been exposed to the toys with lead. Let's see what today's A-list has to say about all of this. Joining us once again, all the ladies, and our gentleman friend who's coming us to remote, Dr. James Peterson. Thank you for weighing in on this at this moment. We have so many outraged parents out there who are saying, how can this happen? This is just amazing. Me too.
So am I. I'm joining one of these lawsuits.
How effective, though, can these lawsuits really be when there's no evidence that there's a direct health risk linked to a specific child? Mercedes?
And that's what we're looking at, children from ages 0 to, say, 18, because that's really what the spread's going to be. For all these individuals up to the age of 18, they can be screened for lead poisoning. So there has to be some want causation, which is exactly right, Uma. You have to show that this particular toy, the toys, led to this contamination, but there are other factors. There might be paint, there might be in their schoolyard, it might be in various other sources where they could have been contaminated with the lead, and that's what's going to be problematic for these plaintiffs, is just showing the causation and say this toy and these toys directly cause this contamination.
But I'd be surprised
Uma, but
no, go ahead.
Sometimes a lawsuit is just for the public sphere and for the public good. This is one of those situations. We need much more corporate responsibility. We cannot outsource the safety of our children to China or to Chinese standards about toys. I have kids right now who play with these toys, with the Dora toys that have been recalled, with the Mattel toys, and this Thomas the Train thing is really, really important. And it's really different from some of these other toys, because I don't know if you guys have been in the toy store over the last couple of years, but they set these train sets up all over Toys R Us and all these different toy stores.
They're there to entice all the kids.
Right.
Yeah, sure.
Exactly.
I agree with James. I think this is a time when Mattel can step up and say, you know what, we don't mind paying for all these lead tests, because we know sometimes lead doesn't really create any toxicity in the body for years. It can be latent for a long time. And why not do the right thing? And as a corporate citizen, say, we care about this, we take responsibility. And by the way, we're going to really put the brakes on in terms of bringing any more stuff in from China. I mean, that to me is the biggest problem here. Every week there's another story about some bad stuff coming in from China. I'm not even eating Chinese food anymore.
Oh, there you go. All right. Stand by for just a moment. This is a... Thank you for bringing us up to date on this story. Let's bring in our A-list panel. We've got another lawsuit, and we're talking about a high-profile celebrity versus these folks who want to take aim at some crazy actions going on. Is this more about how much money they can get out of this, Wendy?
You think?
Yeah.
Oh, my goodness. You know, I'm just reading this going, now, wait a minute. What happened to her? What injuries? Did she break a leg? Did she break a bone? She had emotional distress from driving too fast. Well, you know, I drove with my 5 kids recently, and I had more emotional distress. I can't even imagine a judge tolerating a lawsuit about emotional distress related to driving too fast. It's all about deep pockets. This is a form of extortion, in my opinion, and again, it gives lawyers such a bad name.
Gives lawyers a bad name.
Can somebody clarify this for me? This is someone from Lindsay's entourage's entourage who's trying to sue you?
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, I don't even get it. Of the 3 lawsuits that we're talking about, this one is the least important by far.
Well, it hasn't prevented them from moving forward. This is something that, you know, is going to be confronting Lohan as soon as she gets out of rehab.
Right.
You know, trouble seems to follow her these days wherever she goes.
See, the only upside to this, and not that, obviously the lawsuit is frivolous and crazy, but it's the idea that, you know, she's a really good example of that generation and the narcissism and the idea that she even said, I'm a celebrity, meaning that she can get away with whatever she wants to get away with no consequences. So while the lawsuit will probably be thrown out because it is preposterous, but it's the idea that maybe she'll start to understand there are consequences to her actions. If that could be the only shining light here.
But there's certainly one for generating lots of headlines and lots of publicity and keeping her in the public eye.
Sure, it is. And actually, no, there's no bad publicity here. I mean, certainly her name keeps appearing, her pictures and whatnot, but this case is just ridiculous. You know, they have to go through the psychiatric evaluation and say somehow I'm damaged. It's not going to pass the smell test. This case is going to be tossed on the street.
Maybe give Lindsay some sympathy.
Yeah,
she may actually come out looking good.
Right.
People will feel bad for her being the target of this kind of extortion.
She already has a bunch of people that feel bad and are rooting for her and
Sympathy
say, come on,
Lindsay.
Yeah, I can imagine that.
Yeah.
I never thought we'd see the day.
Never thought.
She needs
it. Panel, that'll have to end the discussion there. We've had certainly a host of topics that have been very provocative. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks, Ian.
Sure.
And now to the Tim Cam.